So, as I said, and we know, I say it all the time, we look at definitions of terms or phrases here a lot because we want to see that, or we notice that the Bible uses terms differently than we do today. And we know, and we've talked about this, it's because the enemy tweaks languages and tweaks everything so that, as Isaiah 5:20 tells us, that in the end times, good will be called evil and evil will be called good. So we constantly look at terms and say, we're going to look at this term today. But by the way, we're going to look at what you may think it means and what it's supposed to mean. And it's always different, the Bible and the world. And so we're going to deal with this again today. And so the term today, or the phrase, I guess it would be called term, is the term or the definition of young men. It's different today than it used to be. Today, it is basically seen in this new term that we have, which can include women and men, or boys and girls, because in today's society, nobody really cares if they're a boy or a girl. They're just in the same category of being what's called an adolescent, which is an invented term, adolescent, by the world. It is basically the time period between puberty and maturity, according to the Webster's Dictionary. This adolescence period is supposedly between puberty and mature adulthood. And with this, while the children, we would say, in this area, or teenagers, were sent off to war in the 1940s, not to mention way back, today, this same age group is seen as still developing children that are almost to the age of 30 years old, leaving an 18-year gap between the age of their puberty and when they're actually held accountable as adults in their late 20s. That's how the world views and invented this term, adolescence. That's what we're dealing with today. And we know it's true. According to the University of Florida's, or Central Florida's General Psychology, we always got to look at what the world says in psychology, adolescence is a socially constructed concept, which we know that. In pre-industrial society, children were considered adults when they reached physical puberty. But today, we have an extended time between childhood and adulthood, and it's called adolescence, and it usually ends in the mid to late 20s is what we have today. And so what this means and what this has become is all adult freedom in that age group, but yet no adult accountability or responsibility or consequences. That's what we see. And we see this in the perpetual and idolization of college degrees as a free zone called adult preparation. And this can last even into their 30s. So college all of a sudden is deemed as, they're still learning to be a big boy. They're still learning these things, and therefore it's going to take them now until maybe their 30s. And with this is the motto that we see. Marry later after getting situated first, as we talked about the other day in our Bible study, men's Bible study. The motto is get married later once you got your life squared away. In other words, maybe by your 30s you'll get married. But then all of a sudden, as in reality, as we're sitting here as men, it begs two questions. How can a male who reached puberty at 12 years old hold on to get married at the age of 30 while maintaining purity? That's the first question. The second one is, if that's the case, do college students have the gift of celibacy? Those two questions are there. And with this, all of this, as the world has fed and bred the tendencies of the natural man, we see now, as this has been developed, what we see is weak men and womanizers. That's what have come out of this whole adolescent thing and this whole new world way of doing things, weak women and womanizers. And in this, what happened is that these have been raised. Well, let me back up. With this, they become cowards or manipulators, which are both for their own self-preservation, self-comfort, self-power, and self-lust. That's what has been developed out of all of this. It's all about self, and they've been raised according to feminism, by which their influence comes from their mommies and other women leaders, including women pastors, rather than godly fathers and other strong men. The whole world's been feminized with these things, and we see it as black and white to us. With this, if the mother is the leader of the home, the young man will learn to cower down, just like his father, in the name of peace and tranquility. Happy wife, happy life, son. That's how he's raised. And he can also learn to manipulate women by appearing to submit to their authority, learning how to be a womanizer. Okay, we'll just let her think that she's in charge, and then we can get what we want, and we'll schmooze her. And that's how womanizers are born. And both of these were seen in the Garden of Eden. The very first sin we see in the Garden of Eden were two men. One was a weak man, and one was a womanizer. Right away, we see this. Satan recognizing Eve's desire for power above her husband's, and even God tempted and manipulated her for the fulfillment of her personal desires that he knew that she had, making her think that he was even submitting to her. You go, girl. You can be like God. And so she's, oh, really? I mean, we can see this happened. And it's happening today. Adam, on the other hand, so Satan was the womanizer. On the other hand, Adam allowed all this to happen, fearing his wife more than God. God even called him on it. You listen to her before you listen to me? Are you kidding me? You're more afraid of your wife than you are of me? So we see that Satan was a womanizer, Adam was a weak man. And these are today's men. All because young men are be able to opt out of becoming real men. They're able to opt out due to the world's definition of them being, I'm just an adolescent. I can't be held accountable. Psychology, everything allows this. They're protected from the influence and discipline of the Bible and godly men according to the feminine attitude of the world. They are protected and given the opportunity to opt out of learning how to be a man. We know this is going on. Therefore, adolescence is today's world's definition of young men, which ranges from 12 to the late 30s with no godly male training, accountability, and consequences. That's the world definition for young men, and we all just go, yep, that's what's going on. But as we like to define terms here, because we have to, let's define what the Bible describes as a young man. The Bible's definition for young men doesn't change with the newest fad. It's the same definition as the Bible never changes. Why? Because God never changes. So let's look at this. The Bible's definition of young men for all time. First of all, in Luke 2:42, we see this. The Bible tells us that Jesus attended the Passover when he turned 12, as it was customary for the young men to attend. When he was 12, the young men were required to go to the temple with their fathers. Why? Because they were young men. This is further seen at the age of 13, where the young men would have what's called in a ceremony called a bar mitzvah. You guys probably heard about that. When a young man turned 13, and a bat mitzvah for young women, signifying their adulthood and their accountability to the law of God as young adults, being 13. Can you see the contrast in the terminology here? This age period also, as you know, describes the time of being physically able to bear children. You don't need to dig in too far to find that out. We know that 12 or 13-year-olds, depending on their exact time when they're able to do it, are basically able to bear children. And with this, Deuteronomy 6:7 says that the parents are responsible for teaching their children in the ways of the Lord. Deuteronomy 6:7. And that the women in Genesis 3:16 will be blessed by their responsibility to raise godly children. And like we said, even nature shows the age of having children around 12 years old. With this, 12-year-old parents are required to teach their children in the ways of the Lord. Therefore, they are obviously accountable to the Lord as adults themselves. Let me read that again. 12-year-old parents are responsible to teach their children in the ways of the Lord. And since they are, then they obviously have personal accountability to the Lord as adults themselves. Okay, chew on that and try to take that outside and try to take that into a psychological meeting or a psychological circle. It ain't going to fly. But this is what the Bible says. And with this, even in Israel, Numbers 1 tells us in 20:46, military service was to start at the age of 20 years old, meaning that they should have already been trained on such traumatic things in life like killing people and watching their friends get killed. And we saw this even, like I said, World War II. We see these things. Therefore, with this, a young man can mean a 12-year-old male. Therefore, that's when the training for manhood should have already been started. If your son is going to be a father at his 12th birthday, you think the training should have started even before that to be a man? So just to prime the pump here, let's get this straight about what it looks like to be a real man and what needs to happen here. And with this age then, this age of, as we know, starting at the ages around 12, is naturally eager, hot, rash, proud, and macho. That's what we see in that age group. Everybody knows that. Therefore, since they're naturally that way, they need to be taught to be careful and considerate. Can you see how you look at the Bible, you look at society, you look at the Bible, it's black and white. It's such a contrast. You can't just say, well, I'm going to try to do both. It doesn't work that way. And therefore, this teaching could not come from his mother. It cannot come from other women. It can't come from psychology. It can't come from women pastors, but only through his father and other godly men. That's just the bottom line. We're in the book of Titus, Titus chapter 2. We're going to be in verses 6 to 8. Lists 5 characteristics of the character of godly younger men, so that they will be blessed in not giving opportunity to the enemy, but instead glorifying God in their daily walk. We're going to see 5 things that will help young men that we then as older men are responsible to teach them, that will help them not give Satan and all the enemies an opportunity. Say, look at those guys in the church. Look at those teenagers in the church, and give Satan an opportunity. No. To not do that, and on the other end, that they would actually be blessed for representing God in a world where teenagers and adolescents are completely godless. Our young men should shine in the midst of this dark and nasty generation. Let's go ahead and read this. Titus 2, verses 6 to 8. Titus 2, verses 6 to 8. Likewise, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute. Likewise, urge the younger men to be sensible. And Paul is speaking to Titus. Remember that. He's a younger man himself. Not really young, but younger. Verse 7. In all things, this is his instruction to Titus, show yourself to be a model of good works, with purity and doctrine, dignified, sound in word, which is irreproachable, so that the opponent will be put to shame, having nothing bad to say about us. And so Paul is giving Titus this instruction to be a model and to encourage the younger men, which means, obviously, us older guys are supposed to be a model and encourage them in the same thing, because Titus isn't here anymore, and neither was this congregation that he's talking about. So, this is the background. We're going through Paul's letter to Titus, Paul had established several churches on the island of Crete in the Mediterranean Sea, and this is in the early 60s, the early real 60s, 60 ADs, right in that time. And he is instructing Titus now, hey, it's time now, you got to get order in the church. You got to get things in order. And here Titus is trying to oversee several churches, And Paul's trying to oversee Titus and these several churches and a whole bunch around the world. It's time to get a plurality of elders in the church and get things squared away. So all of chapter 1, we see the conduct that's required for leadership of the church. Now we get into chapter 2, and he's showing the conduct of the members of the church, how we're supposed to treat each other. And that's where we're at here now in chapter 2. And like I said, Paul's purpose of this letter to Titus was to set in order the conduct of these things, of how the church is supposed to operate. That's why we're doing that here, because we're building a church plant, and we need to be squared away on these things. That's why we went through 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, the model church, and what that's supposed to look like. Now we're looking at model leaders and model people in the church. And we're going through these different people groups. And today, like I said, has to do with how a younger man is supposed to look and our responsibilities in helping them to get there. With this, we have seen the character then of older godly men. Then last week we saw the character of the godly character of the older and younger women. And this time we're going to see the character of what it's supposed to be for the younger men. So first of all, we see there's the characteristics of a godly young man, and it starts out with the manner. How do we develop this godly character? And we see, first of all, it has to be by example. We all know that. It has to be by example by the older men. Otherwise, they have nothing to look at, and all of us are just hypocrites if we're telling them to do it. This is common sense. It has to start by example. Paul is saying this in verse 7 to Titus. In all things, show yourself to be a model of good works. And with this, we learned last week that the older women are supposed to be a model for the younger women. Titus 2:3-5 is a model of good works. We see this in 1 Timothy 4:15. And a model in all things. In all things. And then we see even more details in not just all things. Well, all things include some details in fleeing from youthful lusts, which is 2 Timothy 2:2, where Paul is telling even Timothy, the young pastor, hey, and by the way, you need to flee from youthful lusts. And once again, youthful lusts in our day and age go from 12 to maybe 30. And we even know, as we sit here and go, oh, yeah, but I'm over 30, and I could be prone to these things too. So youthful lusts start out in the youth, but they keep going. So we are then to be a model of good works in all things, as Moses was a model of good works, said Acts 7:22. Christ, of course, was a model of good works, 24:17. Paul in 1 Thessalonians 2 and throughout 2 Thessalonians, as he imitated Christ, 1 Corinthians 11, and therefore we are to follow his example as he follows Christ, Philippians 3:17. And therefore, we should all demonstrate all these things that how Paul lived in the same way, and that's in Ephesians 5:11 and beyond. And listen to this, that we are predestined to do this. Ephesians 2:10. We're predestined, we have to do this, to be a model of these good works. And what are the good works? Well, the good works are what represent the fruit of the Spirit. Galatians 5:22. Therefore, Titus and all of the rest of us guys need to be an example of good works by us practicing the fruits of the Spirit. Therefore, having credibility, because if we don't do what we're trying to teach, you guys know how that works, because we were all once young men ourselves, and if our teacher isn't walking the walk, he's useless and he's a liar. And he's a hypocrite. Therefore, once that's established by setting the example, he's telling Titus, likewise, urge the younger men to be sensible. So the urging the young men is now teaching them. After walking that way, now you're teaching them. And we have instruction how to deal with the younger men as brothers, 1 Timothy 5:1, and teaching them that they do need to submit to their elders, 1 Peter 5, which they should have already got as a little kid to learn how to submit. But even if they haven't, it's our job as older men to teach them, hey, you got to submit to the older guys that are godly men. You got to learn submission. And so this is what we had seen earlier in 2 Timothy 2:2. He's telling Timothy, flee from youthful lusts and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart. In other words, don't be one of those adolescents, but instead be a man. Therefore, just as the older women are to teach the younger women, the godly men are to teach the younger men. Titus 2:3. We also saw that. And with this, you know this, it has to start with the fathers first. We know that there's not always fathers that are going to do it, but it has to start with the fathers first. Deuteronomy 6, Ephesians 6:4, even, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline. Ooh, that's a bad word. The discipline and instruction of the Lord. That is completely countercultural, politically incorrect, and therefore it's going to hurt, and everybody's going to hate you, and you're going to get accused of abuse and everything else. What are you going to do? That's what the Bible forces you to either be of the world or of Christ. And there will be consequences by the world. The world will hate you. The world system will hate you. Satan will hate you. Even your own flesh will hate you, because by you following the Lord, your own flesh is even going to hurt. Everybody's going to be bagging on you because you're doing the right thing. It's going to hurt. What are you going to do, though? Ask for a second helping. With this, then, God's plan is that the teaching of godly older men to younger men should be an extension of what the Father's been teaching all along. In other words, there should be no surprises to when your son gets out there around the big boys and he gets slapped around like he should, and he's not a crybaby because, this is horrible. His dad should have already prepared him for these things. And so we as fathers need to do this, but at the same time, guys, we need to recognize that not every person's father has done that. So we have to recognize that some of us were blessed with fathers that did it. And so therefore we have to recognize that could be the deal. We have to be patient. That's the bottom line. But these are the things that we need to have in our mind as a priority. The father's discipline and instruction should prepare the young man in being further disciplined by the big boys without crying about it. So that when your son gets out there with the big boys, he's already like, go ahead and bring it on, man. You don't know my dad. And that's what I can say. I'm so thankful for my dad, as I've told you guys. Man, my dad prepared me for this stuff and messing with us in a good way, toughening us up, because when I got into the big, bad, scary world, I felt like these guys, I don't even get mad at what they're saying. You can insult me all day long. You haven't met my dad. And so that's what a father's responsibility. And therefore, instead of being a crybaby, he learns to then embrace this as a benefit of being a real godly man. And some of us don't appreciate the benefit of our godly fathers until later, that's for sure, right? But a godly man should really appreciate the toughness that he had to go through to get to this point, as he looks around and says, dude, why can't you handle this? And so we need to encourage that, starting when they're really little, so that by the age of 12, they're able to swallow this stuff. And with this, as you know, there will eventually be, which we see it on Wednesday nights, between the younger men and the older men, we see an iron sharpening iron, Proverbs 27:17, where we come down to where now we get together and you can actually maybe say things to your father in an honoring way. And now you are brothers in Christ, even though he's still your father, but we can see what this leads to. Now, all of a sudden, how can you get a 12-year-old and a 92-year-old in the same place and getting along just fine? Why? Because we have taught men to be men, and therefore when someone's a man, it means the 12-year-old can hang out with the 92-year-old or the 112-year-old. This is what we need to recognize is important. With this, then, Titus gives us these 5 characteristics to teach the young men in godliness, starting with our own example. The first one is, verse 6, to be sensible. To be sensible. We've used this word a lot in this series. To be sensible means to be prudent, therefore soberly thinking, planning, and strategizing things. Hey, you want to come and do this? Hold on a second. Wait. What's the big picture here? That's what being sensible means. It means to be prudent, like paying attention to, like, where's this going to go? Jesus says that wisdom is vindicated by all her children. A prudent man looks ahead and says, where is this going to take me? That's what being sensible means. We talked about the word a few weeks ago, the word temperate, which reflects self-control of actions. Being sensible reflects self-control of the attitude, thoughts, and judgment. It means not being all whacked out of here on the things that you think, say, and that you think that then eventually you would then say and do. It means having and exercising discernment and wisdom. Proverbs 22:3, 12:3, and the only way to get wisdom and discernment is the fear of the Lord. We know that Proverbs 1:7. 1:7, 4:5, 4:7, 9:10, all through the Proverbs we see how you get this wisdom and discernment. It's the fear of the Lord. It's like, this is going to hurt really bad if I do this because the Lord doesn't like it. That's what being sensible is. On the other hand, the adolescents today are taught the opposite of this. They're taught the opposite by the world. No control, no accountability, no consequences, but instead doing whatever it takes to recognize their own personal identity and truth, so that they can discover for themselves and they can follow their own heart, because that's what the world says is important. Yet, what does the Bible say about their own heart, our own heart? It's deceitfully wicked. Jeremiah 17:7. So instead, they need to be taught sensible. Can you see how psychology and the Bible does not mix? They're completely opposite. So when somebody says, well, we do psychology, we sprinkle a little Bible, and it's just we just feel really good. That's trash. It's not, because if you put a little bit of leaven into the truth, what does it become? False. Instead, they need to be taught to be sensible. The second one we have here in verse 7, good works. And we talked about that. Good works. What are good works? They're those things that represent the fruit of the Spirit that Christians should have. Love, joy, patience, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Those are the things that they should be doing. And those are the things that we as older men should be doing. Galatians 5:22 and 23. As opposed, on the other side, the deeds of the flesh that they're not supposed to do, and neither are we. This is Galatians 5:19. Now the deeds of the flesh are evident, which are, and see if this sounds familiar, which of course it does. Sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, which by the way, and I've explained in the Greek means drugs, enmities, strife, jealousy, outbursts of anger, and selfish ambition. Can you see that they're black and white? It goes along with this: dissensions, factions, envying, drunkenness, carousing, and things like these. And all of these things describe the adolescent from 12 all the way through his college years. Go back, bring Galatians 5:19 and go to a frat party and see if anything lines up. And I went to college, so I'm telling you, this is the reality. All these things, then, the days of the flesh, describe today's worldly adolescence as this young man sows his oats. He needs to go out there and discover himself and sow his oats and just be him. Everybody has to have their own identity, you know. I mean, who are you to say what's right or wrong? I mean, you've heard all this trash. This is what we're dealing with. Therefore, he needs to be taught to do good works instead of these deeds of the flesh. Verse 7 then, the next one. With purity in doctrine, this is number 3. Having integrity according to the doctrine. What is doctrine? Doctrine is teaching. To have integrity according to the doctrine. Purity in doctrine means this: not just being a hearer of the word, but being a doer of the word. James 1:21. It's not just, oh yeah, okay, okay, I heard. No, what are you going to do with it? And what we see, and it happens all the time, a danger of the young men in the church today, and I'm sure, more than just the church today, it's been going on forever, as long as there's been a church and even before, that many young men have been raised to have all the head knowledge of the Bible. I mean, we got kids in there, I guarantee you, and I'm not bragging about them because it's just a reality, is that my grandkids can answer some questions that maybe some of us here don't even know. They got it right here. But why do we keep praying for them? To get more of this? Well, yes. But what is our prayer? Is that it goes from here to here and out here and out here and where they walk to. That's our prayer. We know that they're getting fed the truth up here, but it means having integrity according to the doctrine, not just a hearer, but a doer. And we see this in the church all the time for years. Understanding, yet having no application in their lives, as they have not been held accountable for their actions in lining up with their so-called profession of faith. So they go to church on Sunday, you bring them in, they go to Sunday school, and then the rest of the week, and by the way, guys, dads, you need to be more equipped than your kids are. In other words, it goes back to we're setting the example. If they know the Bible better than you do, you're in big trouble. You have no credibility, and you have nothing to say. To put a little pressure on you? Yeah, and by the way, like I said, it needs to start, they need to really start understanding, and they just need to start understanding these things at 12, which means they need to start earlier than that. So, men, this is about us stepping up. So their actions need to line up with their so-called profession of faith. And we know the term, in fact, we talked about it the other day. The term is called PKs. Has anybody heard the term PKs besides you? PKs is an initial for the term pastor's kids. Everybody's heard of pastor's kids. Oh yeah, they know it all too. Where are they? They're running all over the place, running amok. They're in jail. They're all over the place. They know it all, and basically, these are today's versions of the Pharisees of Jesus' time. They were very well equipped with the truth. This is what Jesus says about them, Matthew 23:3. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you shut off the kingdom of heaven from people. In other words, you have all these high standards because you know all the stuff. For you don't enter in yourselves, nor do you allow those who are entering to go in. These hypocrites have everything to say about everybody else and tell everybody, you need to be more like me. You don't know this, you don't know that, you don't know this, and you don't know that. And what they're doing is they're discouraging other people who want to come to the Lord and thinking, there's no way I can because I'll never be as smart as this guy. And they're blocking the door, and they're not even going in themselves. And that's what the hypocrites were doing, and that's what the pastor's kids could be doing, and any one of your kids that are here, because I know pretty much every kid in here that's been coming here knows a lot. Therefore, the young men are to be trained by and held accountable to the men, that they would be doers of the word, not just a doer of some man-made rule to make them look religious. That's the problem. Therefore, their lives should represent their profession of faith. It means call them on it. On Sunday, you are just a good little Christian boy and girl, but you're doing this now, and let's just talk about what the Bible says and how it doesn't line up, instead of, well, that's just Sunday, but today is Monday. So it's up to us guys, us dads, to take care of these things. The fourth one, dignified. The word dignified, we saw this in that the older men should be dignified, meaning worthy of respect, honor, serious, and holy, above reproach. A young man should be dignified. Wow, a young man should be dignified? I thought they were supposed to be like party animals until they were 30. No. It says dignified. Wow. And we saw this in Titus 2:2, Philippians 4:8, and beyond. Having, like we said, seriousness of purpose and strategy. With this, they should be, at the age of 12, they should be taught that they will have to be big boys someday, and they need to start preparing now. Instead of, okay, now that you went to college and and did all your partying, now you're a big boy, and they're like, I am? I mean, do we see college? And like I said, it seems like I'm bagging on college, but my point is the world is saying that college is where you get all your training. In fact, the world's saying this is the place to go. College, you need to go to college. That's how you're going to be an adult. And we don't really want to say that's how you're going to be a man, because that's politically incorrect. So we're just going to say you're an adult, whatever personal gender reference you want to make of yourself. That's the system. We either have the biblical system or the worldly system of education. That's what we're dealing with. And so therefore, it can only come by them being taught to be dignified and planning ahead. When they're 12 years old, like, you need to start working now. In fact, you should have already started working here now because you could be a father in 9 months, if that's the case. I mean, can you see the urgency here? So this young man who's 12 should be seen as a mature young man, and that all men would look up to this young man, even some of us. Like, wow. And definitely unbelievers should be looking up at this young man. And what happened to this guy? The young man his age most of them aren't probably going to like him. But on the other hand, the real young men are going to be going, whoa, I need to hang out with this guy. Where is he getting this from? And his answer is here. And that's how it should be. Therefore, he should have no accusations of foolishness on him, as the worldly adolescents do. And therefore, he should have the discernment to see trouble ahead and the wisdom to say, I ain't doing that. It means being able to see and act according to the big picture. That's what dignified is. Like, everybody else running around, we go, whoa, whoa, whoa. He's going, wait a second. Let's see the big picture here. The fifth one, sound in word, which is irreproachable. Sound means to be uncorrupted, and meaning to be correct. And in their word, in their wording, in their speaking, Ephesians 4:29. Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for the building up of what is needed, so that it will be grace, it will give grace to those who hear. In other words, is what's coming out of your mouth good for other people to hear, or is it bad? Is it going to build them up? Is it going to build Christ up? Is it going to build your reputation up? Or is it going to tear them down, you down, and Christ's reputation? Therefore, no bad speech, but that which is good according to the need of the moment. Which we know what that means, is there's a time to say something, and there's a time even not to say something, according to the need of the moment. And when others hear the good things come out of their mouth, people are going to say, man, this kid, man, he's not even a kid. I mean, the world's calling him a kid, but this guy's, I want to hear more. Where is he getting this? Well, come on Sunday and find out. That's what a 12-year-old should be. That's a model 12-year-old is what we're seeing here. Therefore, as we just said, opening the door for evangelism, Matthew 28:19, giving the world a reason to want to dig into this a little more. Where is this coming from, this 12-year-old? And with this, Paul says this in the same way, Ephesians 6:19, for his own speaking, and this then goes to us as older men and trickles down to the younger men, that words may be given to me in the opening of my mouth to make known with boldness the mystery of the gospel. Even a 12-year-old, we should be modeling this, is to speak in a way where they are articulate in preaching the gospel and bold in speaking up and having the credibility. The boldness comes from the credibility of, like, yeah, I can speak up because I haven't done anything embarrassing in front of these guys. They're actually looking at me and listening. I need to be ready to give an answer. And with this, then, the sound speech of one of the sound speech in his life contributes to his credibility. Therefore, sound speech then is beyond any valid accusations, and instead it is a testimony even to the unbelieving adolescents. You got this 12-year-old. So we see in this passage then, Titus 2:6-8, we saw the 5 characteristics of a godly younger man, so that they will be blessed and not giving an opportunity to the enemy. Let's just put it down to sports guys. It's like, well, you just handed the ball off to that guy. You know, the guy in the different colored shirt, that guy? You just did that. So you won't be that guy, but instead glorifying God in their daily walk. And so we're going to see this then. First of all, to be sensible in all things, meaning prudent, careful, exercising discernment and wisdom. The model of good works as seen in the fruits of the Spirit. We saw that. having purity in doctrine, meaning being doers of the word, not just hearers. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I got this. I can recite it back. No. What did you do this afternoon? What are you doing tomorrow? To be dignified, meaning serious with purpose and strategy, worthy of honor and holy, and to be sound in word, which we just saw, speaking that which is good, representing the gospel to the watching world who were looking at that Christian kid. With this, then, why? Verse 8. Verse 8, this is the conclusion. So that the opponent will be put to shame, having nothing bad to say about us. Who's the opponent? The opponent is anybody against Christ. Basically, it's the antichrist spirit of the world. The whole world is our opponent. The whole world is our opponent. Those who are working according to the spirit of the antichrist today, 1 John 4:3. Those who contradict the truth are our opponents, Titus 1:9. Those who turn away from the truth, Titus 1:14. They heard the truth, they were raised in the truth, and they've turned away. Those are opponents. And that they may be put to shame. With this, then, the Christian behavior should be putting the opponents to shame rather than putting Christ to shame. Peter says this, 1 Peter 2:11 and 12. Behold, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from fleshly lusts which wage war against the soul, by keeping your conduct excellent among the Gentiles. So in the thing which they slander you as evildoers, they may, because of your good works, as they observe them, glorify God in the day of visitation. In other words, God is glorified and not shamed is the way it's supposed to be. And we saw the same basic warning to the women in Titus 2:5, where their behavior, they had to be careful because otherwise their behavior would slander or blaspheme the Bible as they say they're Christian women, but they're not acting like it. It's the same thing. And with this, the word Satan, which we learned last week, that's his name, but his description is the devil. We know that the devil means accuser, and he's always lurking like a roaring lion, seeking to devour Christian witness by finding any ammo that he can to use against the Christian. 1 Peter 5:8. So you might have a really good week, but when you mess up that one time, you've just handed him ammunition. See? And everybody's going to see it. And now you're putting Christ to shame instead of the opponent. That's what's happening here. That one day that you give ammunition to the enemy, you've just messed up your whole week of doing what you should be doing. And Paul was faced with these accusations all the time, especially in Corinth, 2 Corinthians. The whole book was written about how he's getting messed with. People are going to watch you. They're going to watch your 12-year-old. They're going to see if they can get dirt on you. Because if they get dirt on you, they can point you out as just being one of these other idiots around the world that's religious, which is useless. Satan wants to take us down by his accusations. And therefore, since he does, do you think he's powerful? Yes. Therefore, we need to be that much more careful not to shame the name of Christ, but instead to shame the opponent. Make them look stupid in your behavior. Make them look like fools instead of us. David requested this of the Lord regarding malicious witnesses brought against him. This is what he says. Psalm 35:26. Let those be ashamed and humiliated together who rejoice at my distress. Let those be clothed with shame and dishonor who magnify themselves over me. Lord, let them look stupid. I want to match up with you, and I don't want to draw this stupidity against your name. Let them look stupid. Let them be the ones. Isaiah made this prayer request regarding those that make the idols. And you know the guys that make the idols. They carve out the wood, they put silver on it, and they say, "Look, I made this," and then they bow down to it like it has power, even though they made it. And Isaiah is saying this: let them all assemble themselves. You know, all those guys that make the idols. Let them stand up. Let them be in dread. Let them together be put to shame. In other words, let them, the enemy, look foolish and not us, because they can do 20 things shameful and get away with it, and you do one thing shameful, and now you know what kind of problems that is as a Christian. Therefore, the idea here is that young men with their immature and even sinful behavior can shame the name of Christ, but instead, by the example and teaching along with the power of the Holy Spirit, you've got to get this. The young men cannot do this without the power of the Holy Spirit. They have to be Christians. It ain't going to happen unless they are. The power of the Holy Spirit, they can then turn the shame away from the gospel and instead put the shame on Satan and those working for him. And with this, the young men have a great responsibility. We have a huge responsibility here. Therefore, we do in our example in teaching them. Our example first, and then instructing them by teaching. And with this, 1 Corinthians 6:13, Paul is encouraging them to act like men. Just act like men. Not what the world says men are, what the Bible says men are. Okay? Let's pray. Heavenly Father,